This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going the outside of both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
When a three-time world champion of Formula 1 who raced and survived the most dangerous era of motorsport ever calls a track the green hell, you'd better sit down and listen. 175 corners, 24.5 kilometers long, with both sides of the track lined with nothing but bare Armco to catch you when you get it wrong. It's got undulation, it's got high curbs, awkward compressions, 6th gear blind corners, slow speed 2nd gear corners. It's got sections of the track where you'll even get airtime. If ever there is a roller coaster ride of a lap, it is this, the Nurburgring Nordschleife. I'm Bo Albert, and alongside me for tonight's coverage of the 2021 Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series is none other than Mr. Nick Skariev, with Jay Kennedy on the cameras as well. Nick, we're going to take a look at some key points on the circuit, and what a circuit this is.
Yeah, it's exactly right there, Bo. We're just catching up with some of the highlights now from Spa-Francorchamps, so I'll let you show me what happened last round.
No, absolutely. It started off with a spectacular 3-car breakaway in the early laps, and it run like that all the way to the dying laps with Julian Rodriguez Marino under attack from Sven Haas and Daniel Ferguson, and eventually the two would make contact out of Lacombe, as you're about to see, causing Sven to go over the incident limit and dump to the back of this battle for the race win, whilst Pure Sims Esports Daniel Ferguson, you'll see here in the Audi R8, would sneak on through and take the race lead. And then you'll see with Sven Haas over the incident limit, had to dive into the pit lane and serve his drive-through penalty. So now on the final lap of the race, Ferguson was now leading ahead of Marino, and it was a spectacular last lap showdown between the two. You can see the Ferrari in the draft down the Kemmel Straight would attack the leading driver of Daniel Ferguson. He'd have to go the long way around the outside. The Fordzilla Ferrari would try everything he had, late on the brakes around the outside, but it doesn't work. He gets a snap of oversteer, and Ferguson would run away, but unknown to us at the time, Ferguson, who had a very clean race to our eyes, had gone over the incident limit as well, and as the checkered flag was flying, he shocked us all by diving into the pit lane to serve a drive-through penalty in similar fashion as Schumacher and Silverstone so many years ago. So what that meant was our pole sitter, Julian Rodriguez Marino, would go on to take the victory in simply incredible fashion. So that was a very, very dramatic round number 1 we had of the Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series, Nick.
Yeah, and just looking at the list that we have up tonight there, they're going to have their absolute work cut out. So we're just having a look at the Google Earth imagery now. Nurburgring, just out of Frankfurt here in Germany, be probably snowing there at the moment there, Bo.
No, it absolutely would be, as we zoom on in and get a closer look at the Green Hell. What exactly is this circuit? Where is it located? You're about to find out. It's in very dense forest land. And if you do try and walk around the circuit, it is covered in plenty of trees and service roads and all kinds of stuff in the middle. It's a long, long circuit at almost 25 kilometers, 175 turns in a clockwise direction. Our current configuration opened in 2002, and what this circuit has is some stuff that not many circuits can boast. What we'll do is we'll get some key points around the Nurburgring Nordschleife in just a few moments' time. And here we go, we'll get this up on screen. The first thing you need when it comes to the Nordschleife is making sure you've got straight line speed. Against all kinds of common perception, Nürburgring is actually a low downforce circuit. You want a car that is very quick in a straight line, and having that straight line speed is going to be a key to victory on that run down the Dottinger Ho on the 6th lap, or 5th or 6th lap. We'll talk about that a little bit later of this particular race. Our second key point is the carousels, and there is quite a few of them around this circuit. You've got the main one, though, and that's the one everyone talks about. and it is one corner that is more make or break to your lap or making a pass happen than you may think. If you get this corner wrong and you slide out of that little cambered groove there, you are going to lose up to 1.5 seconds there. So riding the carousel to victory is what these drivers today are going to have to do. You cannot afford to slide out of that carousel. And our third of our key points is the being committed as possible from Hot Arct all the way to Schwalbenschwanz around this corner. It's a 90-second run of corners around the back half of the circuit, but on low downforce, the cars are going to skate around. You have to be committed. There's blind crests. You can't see where the road is half the time in this part of the circuit. Being committed through here, knowing your way around the circuit, track knowledge will be oh so crucial here today, Nick.
Yeah, and that's right. And when you're looking at laps around that, well over 8 minutes, I think it is now, for a few people, it's a lot to take in. I think it's 145 corners, so it's so tricky to get right. It's almost trying to find that compromise with just trying to keep that momentum up and just keep maintaining those apexes.
Absolutely, and there are many, many apexes to get right around this circuit. We're looking at a very, very strong race tonight at 4.7 strength of field. So some very high-profile drivers. We've got Mark Elkman from Team Redline. He'll start on the pole ahead of a driver by the name of Bruno Spengler. And if that name sounds just a little bit familiar, well, he's only just gone and been a BMW factory driver for many, many years. Very successful in DTM, GT racing, you name it in a BMW. Bruno Spengler is a driver you need to keep an eye on. And I speak about BMW because tonight is the debut in a broadcasted race for the BMW M4 GT3 released onto the iRacing platform just this week. It's a brand new car. It is a phenomenal car, and I'm very, very interested to see how it gets on tonight as we look at Elias Seppänen there in the pit lane, but he's not going to be there for very long because the checkered flag on warm-up is done, and we are about to transition into our race session as the cars will line up on the Doddinger Straight and get ready for 40 minutes of action, and it's all headed up by Mr. Mark Elkman for Team Redline ahead of Bruno Spengler, your front row. Florian Bowden will line up in third ahead of Cedric Belzec and Patrick Hahn, your top 5. Quinton Vialet in position number 6 ahead of Elias Seppänen, Kevin Volk in position number 8 with your top 10 rounded out by Marius Zug and Niels Carstensen.
Yeah, just missing out there on the top 10, Andreas Fink and Nico Weber there on row 6. Yuhon Jung and Yario Via there on row 7. David Boscat and Robin Verman. Gilliam Kawabe and Ernesto Romero on row 9. Brad Newman and Zwan Lin there on row 10, rounding out the top 20.
Then kicking off row number 11 is Lucas de Belda in position number 21 ahead of Jack Widders, Sergi Hare, Joshua Thomas, and Itu Vani Kungus in 25th place. Nick Coulson in 26th ahead of Mitchell McLeod and Matthew Barron. So a few drivers there not getting lap times in this particular race, but the cars are rolling here at the Nordschleife with wind speeds at 3 kilometers an hour, so the draft won't be as powerful as some other circuits, but at a 26-degree track temp, the drivers will have plenty of grip around here in the early morning of the Nordschleife. So the sun is rising, and about 5 minutes into the race, the sun will officially rise. We'll get a very cool sunset here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. The cars are rolling down with 4 corners to go until this race gets away. And I mentioned that I don't know if this race is 5 or 6 laps. The reason for that is if the drivers can run at a certain pace beyond a 753 roughly, which these drivers are very capable of doing, it will just by a matter of seconds go to a 6th lap. So how much fuel do you put in the pit stop? Do you fuel for 5? Do you fuel for 6? That could be crucial because a fuel stop between 5 and 6 laps is about 4 or 5 seconds difference in fuel. It's big, it's dramatic, it's the Nürburgring Nordschleife for 165 corners. Let's underway. The green flag is in the air for 40 minutes of racing here tonight, and it is Mark Elkman leading the charge into turn 1. We start off with the Grand Prix section. It's all too familiar, but can they spread themselves out in time for the Nürburgring Nordschleife? Late on the brakes, they all go. Constantina effect. You see one of the Euroside BS competition cars there getting into a little bit of contact that might have been Elias Seppänen, who is now stuck on the outside in the BMW M4 GT3. A lot of Ferraris here tonight. It handles the curbs well. It is very, very fast indeed, but they're all just beginning to spread themselves out a little bit, sort themselves out. It's a long race. You don't need contact in the early laps, Nick.
Yeah, we're just seeing a few people running a little bit wide there, but for the most part, pretty clean start there. And I was going to just say there, just on there before, the BMW's sitting so strong there. I think it's Spengler there in second place there at the moment, just on board with Patrick Hahn. Everyone just finding their feet at the moment. It is 40 minutes, so regarded as a sprint race, but still quite long. So you just got to get in there and find your rhythm, and that is definitely what the Nurburgring is about there.
No, absolutely. It is exactly what it's about. And right now, all the drivers are just sorting themselves out a bit. You can see a few looking to the inside into the Grand Prix chicane. It's a risky move if you can do it, because look at the speed on entry through the chicane. It's very high speed. A Lamborghini and a Ford GT goes side by side there as we enter the Nurburgring Nordschleife for the very first time. You can see them coming through this corner. It's called T13, but it's definitely T1 of the Nurburgring Nordschleife. It's a very fast section of track to open up, and the drivers still sorting themselves out side by side of two of the Ferraris as they work their way through. Now on board with Cedric Nebelziak, a very, very fast driver for Team RSO, making his way through the Hartzenbach section, and he is hunting down Bruno Spengler right now. The Ferrari in first, third, and fourth, with that BMW just holding strong in position number 2, but Elkman is checking out.
Yeah, Elkman already putting in a pretty big gap there, so stretching out just outside of that draft zone, you could almost say. Such a fast you see the car's almost launching off the circuit there through that crest. So yeah, Elkman there just outside that draft zone now, so that's a really good buffer to have this early on.
Absolutely is. He's almost broken the draft range. 1.3 seconds is the margin back to Spengler, who makes his way through the terrifying Schwingkreuz and then into Arenberg as well. It's a big braking zone, but Nebelziak not able to get the run. He's not close enough to Spengler as they dive down the foxhole high-speed section. If you're brave, you can set up a move into Adner Forst, but I don't know if he's going to be close enough. The Ferrari closes, but it won't get to the back of Bruno Spengler in time, so we'll have to sit behind for a couple more corners. And the issue is, at this point of the circuit, it's very hard to set up a pass. So Nebelziak may just be a little bit stuck, with Florian Bowden doing a great job behind as well in the race union Ferrari, as well as one of them has had a bit of an issue. Yuhon Young has gone around there at Adner Force, and that's an easy place to do it. And, I'll be honest, it's not the best turnaround I've ever seen. But what we might do is if we get a replay up on screen of what exactly has happened here.
Yeah, such a narrow part of the circuit there, and definitely facing into the wall there with absolutely no runoff. As you can see, it almost looked like he was, a big shoulder check there from one of the other Ferraris. So not too sure who that was, but yeah, very unfortunate there for Yunong Jung there. So that's going to send him right to the back of the line there. You could almost say the Nordschleife for such a battle of attrition we've seen in broadcasted races in the past. It's almost, you've just got to try and, especially in a championship situation like this, just try and get the best result you can and go with it. And just trying to stay in the game is going to be a task in itself.
We're looking now at the back of Patrick Hahn, who is chasing down BS Competition's Elias Seppänen. And for those that aren't aware, BS Competition recently signed a very, very exclusive deal. Well, if you're wondering why they're running the BMW, they are now officially a BMW Motorsport Sim Racing official team. They are officially backed by BMW Motorsport, and that is a huge honor to have, Nick.
Yeah, and especially on the iRacing service as well, BMW coming to the table, even with some of the new content of late, with the GT4 car, starting off the GT4 road racing campaign for iRacing, some of the older GT3 cars as well. So yeah, very heavily involved with iRacing, and it's great to see him on board.
It absolutely is. As we jump back up to this battle for position number 2, Nebelziak still hunting down Spengler, who's done this race in the real world many, many times. And Nebelziak is a very familiar name to those of the VLN community. I've raced against Nebelziak many, many times. And what I know from experience is he is not afraid to go for a dive. If he sees an opportunity, he will absolutely go for it. I always remember getting absolutely steamrolled up the inside of the final corner here when Nurburgring saw me run just a little bit wide and he filled the gap. He is not afraid to go for a pass, and Spengler will be feeling the heat at the moment as we look at the 12th place driver at the moment up on screen, making their way through this next section of track, the hot arc section. And this is a very, very scary part of the circuit. It's called Hot Arc because it's actually known as the High 8. It's the highest point of the Nurburgring Nordschleife, and such as the elevation change, that is quite a nice stat to have. As we look at Yanni Lin and Nick, we've got a Ford!
Yeah, it's always repping the Ford there. We've seen in some of the previous VRS Sprint GT series that we've posted in the past there. Fords have always come across as a bit of a wild card. They're probably a bit of a faux pas now, being some of the older content on the service. But look, it's at number one there. Oh, we've just seen Patrick Khan, and Patrick was sitting right at the top there. I think in 5th place. So very unfortunate there for Patrick. So not going to be a great points haul for him that he was hoping.
This is a corner very affectionately known as YouTube corner because there's so many spins and crashes. I hate to say it, Patrick, but you've just made yourself into a Nurburgring crash compilation video as you have spun around at YouTube corner. Not ideal at all, and it's just losing the car on the entry into the corner, the Ferrari mid-engined. So if you just come off the brake a little bit too fast when you're trail braking, it will rotate very, very quickly indeed. But what I want to do is just go back up to this battle with Spengler, Nurburgring, and Bowden as well, because what you're about to see is what you're going to see many passes happen around this particular race. The Dottinger Straight, it is enormously long, over 2 kilometers, and the draft effect here is absolutely enormous. And already the Ferrari is the fastest car in a straight line, so Spengler is going to be near on defenseless here as Nurburgring closes and closes and closes, and the RSO Ferrari is going to go right on past the BMW Motorsport M3 GT3. And I tell you what, if Florian Bowden was just a little bit closer, he might have been able to have a go as well, but Spengler has no response, and Nurburgring will go on through as they cross the Bilstein Bridge.
Yeah, and you can see even Spengler there tucking in behind there of Nurburgring, and you're exactly right there. Absolutely unable to defend there, and that Ferrari just having that absolute top speed advantage there. Coming around, getting very close to the start-finish line as get their first lap done and dusted now.
Yep,
pretty tight corner coming up.
Oh, look at that. It's a dive or an attack from Bruno Spengler. He doesn't want to sit behind an entire lap behind Nurburgring. He wants this position back. He tries to close the door. There's only just a gap there for Nurburgring to actually dive up the inside using all of the curb. It is side by side heading into the Mercedes arena, and late on the brakes goes Nurburgring. He will get the move done, and I think that's a good move. Right now, I think Nurburgring just has a little bit more pace than Spengler, so if he is able to take Spengler with him, maybe the two can cause a bit of a fight to the back of Mark Elkerman if he makes any kind of error around this very, very long circuit indeed. But what it's done is caused Elias Seppänen to close in on this battle as well, so we've got a 4-horse race, or should I say a 4-zebra race into the top 2 position at the moment. Because of course BS Competition, they like to call themselves the Zebras with that very unique paint scheme.
Yeah, you'd almost, if you're Florian Bowden or Seppänen as well, seeing those two fight and go side by side, that's pulled them right onto the back. But with Nurburgring getting through there, it's almost now going to be not good news for him. You can see, Nurburgring there, about 0.6 of a second there at the moment, so not really enough to pull away the draft at the moment, but he's definitely outside striking distance of Spengler.
Absolutely, and also we have another driver joining the party as well, in Quinton VLA, who drives for R8G Esports, but the junior driver firm of that particular team. And of course, R8G Esports, owned by one Roman Grosjean, former Haas Formula 1 team driver, of course, involved in a shocking accident at the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we're so thankful he is okay. And of course, the R8G Esports team means that although Roman isn't racing in the real world currently, well, he can still race in the virtual world. And Quinton, one of their junior drivers, doing a fantastic job at the moment in car number 1. But this battle just going to keep on raging and raging as they make their way through Floodplatz's high-speed commitment through this long, high-speed right-hander, and then they head their way down this very, very kicked-back straight. And what is the pace of Florian Bowden? Is he able to get close enough to challenge Spengler into Schwienkreuz? I don't think so. He's closing and closing. He's so close, but not close enough. And Florian is going to have to wait yet another lap behind the back of Bruno Spengler.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. He's probably looking just behind there. So not forgetting he does have Elias Sedman and Quentin Velate there on the back of him as well. So this track just being so narrow, you don't want to just make an avoidable mistake there. Talking avoidable mistakes there, Josh Thomas there, half spinning that Lamborghini and being collected there by a Ferrari behind there. So bit of shoulders there, and we've just had Matthew Barron as well there, spin in sympathy. So yeah, the Lamborghini's not doing too well there. Haven't seen too many Lamborghinis at the front in this race, but definitely getting their airtime with a few incidents here and there.
No, absolutely. Where is second place Cedric Nebelshik gone? I've just noticed he's dropped himself. He's still in the race, but he's dropped himself down to 6th place. Has he had a bit of an issue at Aden Air Force? Through the right-hander he will go. Too much entry speed on the curb, and he hits the wall quite hard as well. So Cedric, who was trying to hunt down your race leader, Mark Alkerman, has just thrown any chance of perhaps a race win away, and more than likely a good result as well. Just too much entry speed, hooked up on the curb, and it bounced him off at Aden Air Force and into the wall. So lots of damage there to the number 4 car, and he will have to fight on for quite a difficult race from here on.
Yeah, very unfortunate there for Nebelshik as well. I think he happened to come off on the circuit where the actual infield kind of opened up a little bit, so he couldn't just get that grip and steer back onto the circuit. So a bit unfortunate for him there. Not forgetting he did qualify 4th there, so only a few positions down, but he would be absolutely kicking himself with the gains that he had made earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, he was setting a very good pace. He wasn't quite catching Alkman, but he was definitely pulling away from Spengler, who now has Florian Bowden for company behind. And through this very long section of track known as the Kasselchen, it's not quite enough overlap in speed for Bowden to launch any kind of an attack on Mr. Bruno Spengler, but he is close enough that if he can stay with him all the way through the remaining part of the lap, he will have a very good shot coming through the Dottinger Straight, and will be able to launch an attack that way. As you can see, they launched themselves really hard onto the brakes, into the Steel Striker hairpin, working their way through, and then the long run into the carousel. And I said this was the key to the race victory. If you fall out of this corner, if you fall out of the cambered groove, you're in a world of trouble, and Bruno Spengler nails it perfectly. All of these drivers, they're all some of the best in the iRacing world. They know exactly what they're doing, and they continue to fight their way through the carousel with absolutely no issue at all. But this is a steep part of the circuit. The gap in height between the carousel and where we are right now, her arc, is a 27% gradient. It is such a steep part of the track, so constantly you feel like the car doesn't have enough power because simply you're just going almost vertical up the racetrack.
Yeah, and to put 27% into perspective, yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to try and run up there or ride a bike up there. It's very, very steep, and even for these really powerful GT3 cars, you definitely feel going up that incline, as you could just see descending now just on board here with I think it's Marcus Zug and Niels Carterson. So using all the track and then some, well and truly over the edge of the curb there. These these guys in the Ferraris know how to push it using all the circuit and then some. So but keeping it in that top 10 there at the moment, so very good work by these two.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Nils Carstensen, one of the other RSO racing cars, and very much a regular in the German VLN scene. He is very, very competitive as well. RSO very much known as a VLN specialist team, and they're putting that on display once again here today as we go back up and have a look at Florian Bowden, who's just been gapped ever so slightly by Bruno Spengler. I've got to say, I'm very sorry, Bruno, but that is not enough of a gap, and that Ferrari is going to be hunting him down the entire way down the next 2 kilometer straight as the sun is rising very beautifully on the left-hand side of your screen there. The sun is definitely coming up and it makes for some very pretty pictures indeed. So if you are an aspiring photographer, get in this session and get some very nice photos, and you might be able to witness a snapshot of what is going to be a pass for second place as Florian Bowden in the draft now down this long back straight. The speed difference is already over 5 kilometers an hour, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Bruno has to see that race union Ferrari in the background in his mirror getting closer and closer and closer. Is running out of time, is running out of straight to defend, and Florian pulls alongside, and then he was gone. Into P number 2 is Florian, and Bruno for the second time in 2 laps is demoted to 3rd. But can he get it back into the hairpin? We saw him last time get very, very punchy into the Mercedes Arena turn 1. Is he able to do it for a second time as well? I don't quite think so. It looks like a good exit from Florian, and Bruno should be able to hold on to that for now.
Yeah, so Florian there just holding it out as they cross the line now. About 0.4 of a second back, but you could see Florian like right on that 280 kilometers an hour, absolutely stretching those legs there of that Ferrari. And as you were saying before, that I think it was about 5 or 6 kilometer an hour difference there. You could just see just visually how much he was pulling in there. So just seeing Spengler now under a little bit of pressure now from Elias Sepinen. So he's could be 2 for 1 here, and not in a good way.
Yeah, we just saw Jaro Vai as well diving into the pit lane, so he's going for the early undercut strategy, and good to see Jaro Vai out on track as well, a long-time runner of VLN himself, so great to see that he's returned for a VRS GT Sprint Series race, much shorter than the 4-hour races he is very much used to, but absolutely his battle for position number 2 continues to rage on. They've just dropped Quinton VLA and Cedric Nurburgring just a little bit, so the RSO and R8G esports drivers just falling a little bit further back than they would have liked to have stayed in contention. But Seppen and Spengler and Bowden, a very strong combination. And what can Bowden do now? I'm interested to see how his race pace compares to the like of Spengler behind. Of course, he was sitting in 4th place in this race for a little while behind Nurburgring and Spengler. Now promoted to 2nd, he's got clean air, he doesn't have to worry about the cars behind, just push forward. What can he do in response to Mark Alkman, who was the fastest driver on track last lap around by 2 seconds? Gap now out to 5 seconds for the Team Redline driver. He's putting on a clinic here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. But at the moment, Florian Bowden doing a great job, as is Bruno Spengler, as they make their way through Hutzenbach once more, with Elias Sepinen just running a little out of shape through that particular section of corners, but holds on to it nicely. We'll fight on to live another day.
Yeah, I'm just seeing some of the feedback there from Florian Bowden's car there. So hard into those curbs. Those GT3 cars are so stiff, but well and truly out of striking range there of Spengler. So the pressure's going to be a little bit off, but he's not going to have to cover off any defensive lines or any attacks there from Spengler, but will really want to try and get the pedal down wherever he can and try and put that gap, try and bridge that gap out past a second or so.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see the R8G esports car and the RSO car fighting their way now through Arenberg, and see if Nurburgring can get a bit of redemption. This is, of course, the part of the lap in just a few moments' time where he did actually have that incident on the last lap. Can he get a redemption here and make a pass happen on Mr. Quinton VLA into the next particular section of track? He looked up inside for a moment, but it's such a high-speed entry. Sometimes it is just a little bit too risky, and he will have to stay behind for a few more corners. Now, just for those watching, the drivers will all be pitting this particular lap unless they have done a little bit of a fuel save. The cars are fueled for 60 litres for the most part, in the form of the BMW at a 120-litre tank. The Ferrari has a 55-litre tank out of 110 litres total. So all the cars will dive into the pit lane on this particular lap unless they have fuel saved, but I don't think Mark Elkman would be doing much fuel saving. He's now extended that gap to 5.5 seconds. He continues to bolt out front, and I don't think Bruno Spengler will stay out for any more fuel saving as well, because he does have a little bit of visual damage to the front of his M3. So one of the things around this circuit is at a place like Flansgarden, at the back end of the circuit, if you land a little bit too hard on that really big compression and crest of the circuit, you can actually damage the front of your car a little bit, and you just seeing the right side of the front splitter there for Bruno Spengler just a little bit out of shape, and that will be hurting his straight line speed even more compared to the likes of the high-speed Ferraris.
Yeah, and especially when Yeah, he definitely can't give up an inch to these two Ferraris, or well, with the Ferraris up ahead, as well as Alice Seppinen there behind him. But I was just casting my eyes over the timing screen at the moment. Jack Whittis there, up 7 positions, so from 22nd up into 15th. We'll just see if we can catch him there, repping Australia as well as repping the new Lamborghini that I think it's a week or so in there. So good to see a few people trialing out and trying to get their head around the handling of some of these new content that we have on iRacing.
Yeah, absolutely. As we go on board and have a look at Robin Veerman, who's getting very close to the back of David Bosco, who I think is going to maybe let him through. Maybe not, as getting very high speed. Maybe just an offensive line there on the brakes as Bosco as they head through the Mut curve in a few moments' time. And if you're wondering what the Mut curve translates to, it's courage curve, because you need, well, something of steel to make it through that corner at high speed. It's a risky corner at high speed, and Bosco will hold on for a few moments' time. As I'm just hearing a bit of a radio chatter from Mitch McLeod, who's not too happy at the moment, and he finds himself in a battle pack with Jaro Vai behind, who of course has just taken his pit stops, as Jaro is a little bit out of sync, and Yuhan Jung as well behind. So are these drivers getting all a little bit feisty with one another, despite alternate strategies?
Yeah, I do believe I think he was trying to let someone through, so I'm not too sure what's happened there anyways, but
Oh, he's about to let a lot of people through if he keeps that up.
yeah, just kind of half caught off shot there, running super wide there. So yeah, looks like the new Huracan is a bit of a beast to tame there. Keeping on the road, we have seen a few of the Lamborghinis unfortunately go off there, but be able to catch a replay of that now, Bo.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was through the Mut curve. You'll see he just runs a little bit wide on exit. There's quite a bad bump there. You'll see the car right there, just bounced into the air ever so slightly, and he was actually very lucky to get away with that. And we did see Jaro Vai slip on through and take that spot. So if he was trying to let a driver through, he managed it, just probably not in the fashion he would have liked to have done. As we go back up to your race leaders, who will find themselves through the Flanskar now. It's Quinton VLA still holding off Cedric and Belgic at the moment, and these two having a good little fight. You can see Belgic with a little bit of damage to the right-hand side after an off on the second lap and they're forced. So not ideal at all for him, but we'll see how it affects his straight line speed in a few moments' time, because they will be coming up to the Dossinger Straight for the third time in this particular race. They may see it 5 or 6 times. It's always very tight compared to the pace of your race leader. I said 7:53s were roughly the time you needed to be under to go to a 6th lap. Currently, we're doing 7:53.2s. So this could be very nip and tuck compared to whether we get a 6th lap or not. And then Belgic now onto the Donjaho Straight. And how is the straight line speed compared to the R8G Esports Junior team car in front? And I think it's a fair way back compared to another Ferrari in front. So either this will go to a drag race into the final few sections of corners at the Tiergarten, or I think Belgic will just use the draft and just make sure that they all get into the pit lane nice and calmly without any dramas. Because you don't want to go side by side into the pit lane entry here, because it is very tight indeed. You actually go through a little gap in the Armco, and if we stay on board with Elias Seppinen here, you'll actually see just how tight this pit entry is as a race leader, and everyone else you will expect to see dive into the pit lane, gap in the Armco, shoot through it, and then dive onto the brakes for the pit entry line, get very close to the BMW driver in front as well.
Yeah, pinpoint accuracy there. I almost thought he was going to be a bit of a boot ornament there on the back of Spengler, but everyone into the pits now. We're seeing looks like a Ferrari is sticking out there. So
Andreas Fink
thinking there might be a little bit game and squeeze out that extra lap there. So not too sure how that's going to go down there, but just seeing Jack Whittis there at the end of the line there also pull in. So almost side by side there out of the pits there, but we'll be yielding behind there.
So Elkman's just had a very slow lap. Now, here's what I think has happened considering the big difference in gap between them going into the pit stops. I think Florian Bowden has fueled for 5 laps. I think Elkman has fueled for 6. So which one of them has got this right? Which one has got it wrong? We don't quite know at the moment. It could be very close. But I think just looking at the timing screens, I've got a hunch this may go 5 laps. So I think what Elkerman's actually done is reduced his race lead a lot more than he really needed to. So for the driver that started in 3rd place, fell to 4th and was looking pretty not comfortable in 4th, but he didn't really look like making a move to attack 3rd or 2nd place in front of him, now finds himself in 2nd with a chance at the race win as Seppänen is side by side with VLA as they will go side by side through the Grand Prix section. I think Seppänen has the better exit speed and will make that move happen. So look at the disparity between all these drivers. I don't know how many laps the fuel for. Some have gone 5, some have gone 6. You can see Spengler has gone for 5 laps as well. He's closed on your race leader. Seppänen, I think, has gone for 6, as he was 4 seconds slower than Seppänen, and VLA has then gone for 5 laps of fuel, so totally different strategies.
Yeah, and it's definitely what you were mentioning before about a lot of these corners named after courage and being brave. You'd have to be pretty brave there by really putting on the line with your fuel, with your fuel strategy there. Risk not crossing the finishing line and not getting those points. So we're just having a look here at VLA there at the moment. So who was the first, sorry, you did mention, I think it's Seppänen and VLA were the first people that did put that extra fuel in. So you can just see physically that gap out to in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. So the drivers that fueled for 6 laps includes Mark Elkerman, Elias Seppänen, and Cedric and Belgic of your top few cars at the moment. The drivers that fueled for 5 includes Quinton VLA and Bruno Spengler and Florian Bowden as well. And I do look at the timing screens, and I do think this may go to 5 laps with just a few seconds. So I think they may have played their cards right, and the rest of the drivers may have just put a bit more fuel in than they needed, and might be running a little bit heavy for the remaining part of this race. But of course, you know, if it does go to a 6th lap in this particular race, you know, at a circuit like, let's say, Silverstone, if you underfuel by a lap, it's going to be a challenge, but you can fuel save that. But if you underfuel by a lap at the Nordschleife, you're talking about being 15 litres short. If you underfuel by a lap here, you're not fuel saving that.
Yeah, there's definitely no coming back from that at all. No amount of driving in high gears and leaning off the throttle, especially with all the undulation here as well. Yeah, if you make that mistake, it's almost curtain. So we're just on the back of LS Seppänen there at the back. See, looking at VLA, beautiful German sunrise there in the background, sitting really good now. So by the looks of it, just one more lap after this. So these races do come and go so quickly, and yeah, blink and you miss it.
No, absolutely. There's been a very dramatic race so far. Plenty of changes and strategies and all kinds of differences. And we still have at least 2 laps to go, potentially 3 if the timing works out a different way. And we're going to see plenty more battles down the Donjaho Straight. And maybe a few more battles into Brunchen and Versailles as well, as Kevin Volk is coming under a lot of pressure from Niels Carstensen at the moment, as they do dive themselves now into the Brunchen section of corners. And we'll see how he dives through this next bit of the circuit. That's of course Exmüller, and then you run through this long little straight heading toward Loudest Kink, of course named after his infamous 1976 accident here in the German Grand Prix. Can Carstensen make anything happen here into Bergwerk up the inside? No, he can't. But if he can get a good exit here, it was an okay exit. It could have been a little bit better, but he's going to get the draft all the way down this Gesamtstrecke straight, and maybe, just maybe, if he's brave, can have a shot at Courage Curve.
And Courage Curve definitely as well. So he's only about 2/10 of a second there off the back. Oh, closing it right in there. So he's going to be right up on the back there of Kevin Volk, trying to find a way around. You can see how narrow it is at this part of the circuit, using Kevin Volk using all that curve there. Just seeing in the background as well, these two just swapping their lines a little bit as well. So that is, I think, Nico Weber in there behind these two. So a lot happening on circuit there at the moment.
It certainly is. So Nico Weber is doing a nice little battle at the moment as he tries to hunt down Cartensen and Volk as well. And Cartensen's fell out of the carousel. It's a key to victory in this race. And Weber, who was some way back, easily gets through. And that is why I say you cannot fall out of the carousel. If you do, you lose so much time. And look at the margin he will lose here. So you'll go into the carousel with Niels Cartensen in a few moments' time. You can see just a little bit further back, this was the run heading towards Mut Curve. We'll just get another look and see just how close he really did get. You can see he wanted to, but too much moving around the brakes there and he couldn't quite do it. You'll actually notice as well, he's in 5th gear in a straight line on the rev limiter rather than using 6th. The reason for that is because it is so uphill. If you actually use 6th gear there, your revs will drop so much, it's actually slower, so you want to stay in 5th and utilize those revs there as he gets very close through the Steel Striker hairpin. Couldn't quite get to the back there, but now this is the real visual point I want to paint in your head. Look how close he is to the car in front and how far back the car behind is. He falls out. Look at the margins of the car in front, and the car behind can actually clear him as well. You fall out of that carousel, you are not catching back.
Yeah, such a costly mistake there. But currently sitting on the back there of Nico Weber there. So potentially might be able to get a draft there onto the straight and get back in front there. But it does look like their chances of getting inside, I think it was that 9th position there of Kevin Volk is going to be pretty tricky. So we're just casting our eyes back to the front there, or close to the front of the race there with Elkerman. Pretty comfortable gap there down to Florian Bowden, who's had such a cracker of a race.
Absolutely, as Florian is trying to use the draft to get a little bit closer to Mark Elkerman in front. And he will definitely close up, but he's not going to be close enough. And look at the timing screens. We're going to miss out on a 6th lap, I believe, by just a matter of seconds. There could be nothing more than about 7 or 8 seconds. It's going to be very, very close because the detection point for whether a white flag is thrown is right on the exit of this corner. We don't quite know if this will be the white flag or not. They're going to cross the line, I believe, and miss out by maybe 3 or 4 seconds. We don't know. We'll have to see if it's going to be tricky. So what actually might have happened here is my director's just telling me Andreas Fink, of course, did not pit on that previous lap. So he might have gone past the detection point for that final lap, before the leaders did, and actually set it off to the point where we might get a 6th lap here. I don't actually know for sure. This is the final lap, and I'm looking at the time that the leader crossed the finish line. There was 8 minutes and 2 seconds remaining. I think we've got a 6 lap race, and if that's correct, Florian Bowden, Bruno Spengler, Kevin Volk, all do not have enough fuel in their car. Quinton Vialet has just dived onto the pit lane, taken himself out of contention. He needed 1 more lap of fuel. He fueled for 5. It's going to be a 6 lap race.
Yeah, so VLA potentially knowing something that a few of the others don't there, so you can see that's going to really shuffle him down the line. But unfortunately, it's either that or, well, it's not risk running out of fuel, will be running out of fuel. So potentially that might be able to get back there. But yeah, if you're Bowden, Spengler, and a bunch of the other guys here at the front there, you'd be absolutely kicking yourself.
Yeah, we've just had it confirmed as well. This is not the final lap. There will be a 6th lap. Of course, the driver Andreas Fink, I don't think will be very popular right now. He's a nice guy, I'm sure, but he won't be popular because he has ruined a lot of drivers' races purely by going that 4th lap. He has set off a 6 lap race rather than 5. So Mark Elkerman, he did the right thing. So he gave up a lot of his race lead, but that will prove a very strong decision at the end of it. We're looking at Niels Cartensen at the moment. He doesn't have to worry about the guy in front or behind him. Kevin Volk fueled for 5 laps. Nico Weber fueled for 5 laps. Elias Seppinen on screen at the moment for BS Competition. He's fueled for 6 laps. He's going to get 2nd.
Yeah, so it's going to turn this...
if he doesn't throw it off the road.
Yeah, which is also a probability, but absolutely turn the running order here on its head there. So it's going to yeah, going to really mix up the field. Unfortunately for some, but yeah, an absolute masterstroke for others.
Absolutely. So what I'm just going to quickly do, I'm going to run through the order of the drivers that have only fueled for 5 laps. And that includes Jaro Vai, Kevin Volk, Ernesto Romero, Quinton Vierle, Nico Weber, Florian Bowden, and Bruno Spengler. So that is a large margin of drivers. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers with incorrect fuel in their car. They will have to go a lap further than their fuel tank dictates. Motor simulation replay up on screen. And what are we going to see? I think I saw 2 cars side by side through Schweinkreuz, and David Bosger is fighting there with another driver. I'm not quite sure of the moment. Robin Veerman, as they will go side by side down this very terrifying straight. 2 Ferraris, one-on-one. The prancing horse versus another, and Veerman manages to veer his way into the next position.
Yeah, so great little overtake there by Robin Veerman, just edging himself in the top 10. So knowing that I think the top 10 is going to be pretty mixed around in a lap's time when just a few of these drivers come in there. But the Ferrari's been so strong at the moment. We've seen a few solo of the new BMWs come through, and people taking a bit of a risk there, giving it a crack. So great to see that out there at the moment. Same with the Lamborghini.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see the Lamborghini out on track. I actually did a couple of races yesterday myself in the Lamborghini, and it is a car that gets thrown around a lot here at the Nordschleife. So I'm not going to use it myself for the rest of the week. I'm going to go find myself a Ferrari, because in the hands of Mark Alkerman right now, they are looking very strong indeed. Always been a strong track for the Ferraris. They can handle curbs absolutely fantastically, and it's a circuit we need a lot of straight line speed. 2 characteristics the Ferrari has a lot of. I actually did a balanced performance video on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BroAlbert. Nice little plug, kaboom. But the acceleration of the Ferrari isn't actually that strong, so the real thing that's saving it here in this race isn't straight line speed around such a long circuit.
Yeah, that's right. And you can see it absolutely sail past there, especially in the BMWs, as we've seen. We're actually about to see 2 sail past each other at the moment. I'm just currently looking there at Niels Carterson there on the back of Kevin Volk at the moment. So such a fast part of the circuit. I think around that, I'm currently sitting at around 220 k's an hour. I think they're going just a little bit quicker than that there, just in that straight section before. Hard on the brakes there, brings it all the way down to about 80 k's an hour. So yeah, the Ferrari's definitely getting a workout there. The Nurburgring, the Nordschleife just throws out so many different types of corners and talking types of corners there. You can see them go through that carousel. So you've got bank corners and tight sections and flow sections and long straights. So talking about balance of parity, it's a really fine line there that you have to kind of walk to find something that kind of is so capable at all those different attributes.
That was a funny corner though, isn't it? Of course, for those that actually don't know how the carousel really all came about, it actually was never meant to be a cambered part of the circuit. What actually happened back in the early days of Grand Prix racing was it was actually just the flat asphalt part of the circuit. That's all the carousel was. There was no cambered part. But on the inside of the track, there was a dirt pile that was just a little bit downhill, and one of the drivers thought, instead of using the flat part of the circuit, what if I drive in the dirt for an entire corner? And he did it, and it actually proved much, much faster. So what they did a couple of years later was actually use that cambered part of the circuit, paved it all asphalt, and that's how the carousel came about. It was all done by a driver who decided to purposely drive in the dirt for a Grand Prix car, which is not something I could say Lewis Hamilton will be doing anytime soon, Nick.
Yeah, that's right. But talk about driving in dirt very quickly. World Rallycross there, Bo. So potentially maybe smash out a corner like that in World Rallycross. I'm sure there's plenty of cambered dirt corners there. You'd absolutely fly that Volkswagen around. Oh, but just seeing Carterson there so close there on the back of Kevin Volk, he's obviously not going to make a move. He's going to be waiting till the straights there, but really sticking to the rear bar there of Kevin Volk's there, Ferrari.
Well, that's the thing is, does Carterson, well, he's got to go for a pass here, I think, anyway. He's going to have such a draft effect down this long Dutch and Joho straight, and you'll see in just a few moments' time, he will have the advantage on Kevin Volk in front for the car in front. I don't quite know what team you're race for. My apologies, Kevin Volk. But you will see Neil Carstensen in the Team RSO car fly on past this long straight. But I wonder if he actually knows about the fuel advantage or disadvantage there between these drivers. He might actually not know that Kevin Volk for Team Phoenix Racing Esports. There we go. I read the side of your car. I wonder if he actually knows he cannot make it another lap. We're going to see Florian Bowden dive into the pit lane on the final lap. Bruno Spengler dives into the pit lane. Elias Sepinen does not. Nebeljic, I imagine... Oh, no, he is fueled for a 6th lap. He will be fine. Our next driver to pit will be Kevin Volk, who is in this battle. And you'll see in the background, one goes in, one stays out. And Nico Weber as well dives on into the pit lane. So, yeah, I said at the start of the race, I don't know if this is a 5 or 6 lap race. Neither did the drivers.
Yeah, we're just looking a little bit further down the field there at the moment to Jack Wittes. So currently sitting in 17th, so lost a few positions a little bit earlier. I'm not too sure how the Australians have gone there with this big, well, I wouldn't say fuel strategy, but with this drum with the fuel. So Jack Wittes choosing to stay out there, so he's pretty confident that he has his fuel strategy sorted out. So that's going to actually bring him up. Oh, not too sure what's going on there. I think we just had a either a car come out of the pits and there's another one stranded on the side of the road. So
Jaravai. Oh, I think what's happened, he only fueled for 5 laps. He didn't dive into the pit lane. He's just realized there's no checkered flag waiting for him. There is no checkered flag for Jaravai. He's driven past and realized, oh bugger, I am a long way from home.
yeah, I also noticed, I think there might have been a Lamborghini there on the pit straight there as well. So just hearing a bit of commotion there over the race radio, I think by a few people caught unawares by the situation with the 6 laps. So yeah, we're already starting to see a few drivers unfortunately hit the deck. So that's going to be a DNF for those. But great little group for me here, a little bit further down the line there between, I think that's Romero, Yaravia, and Jack Wittes there. So
Yep, so Jack Wittes, Patrick Hahn, Nico Weber, and Kevin Volk all in this little battle. And Patrick Hahn, hello, that's a lot of oversteer through that particular corner that joins onto the Nordschleife. But there's going to be a lot of interesting battles now because Kevin Volk and Nico Weber, they've all just pitted on that final lap, whereas Patrick Hahn did not pit on the last lap, and Jack Wittes also didn't pit on the last lap. So we've got drivers very much out of place at the moment. If we jump up to 7th and 8th place, we've got Bruno Spengler currently in 8th place. He's currently heading towards the Flugplatz. He pitted last lap around. David Bosga fueled correctly and has found himself in 7th place ahead of the BMW factory driver. So these two is a 1-stop versus 2-stop fuel strategy. And we know the pace Spengler has, but he's only got 1 lap to find a way past the super fast in a straight line Ferrari.
yeah, David Bosca having an absolute cracker of the night there. So not forgetting he did start 15th out there. So up quite a lot of positions there to be sitting there in 7th place there at the moment. But that's right, Spengler is so strong there, as we've seen all race there. I think he's definitely going to have his work cut out for him there.
No, he will. We'll see what he does into Adnir Force, the very high-speed section of the circuit that slowly slows down much into this very tight little left-hand section of the circuit. It's almost like a Grand Prix part of the circuit. It's a very out-of-place part of the circuit for the Nordschleife, but I'm a little bit upset now because David Bosga has put up absolutely no fight against Bruno Spengler. I think he knows tonight is going to be a great result for him in position number 8. He wants to do nothing to jeopardize that, so he's just going to keep on running around at his pace, and with the pace he has shown, I don't believe he will be caught by Quinton Violette just a few cars behind. We'll jump up to Kevin Volk and Nico Weber behind, and these two are going to fight their way through. Metzgerfeld as on the grass goes Kevin Volk, and lucky to avoid running off into the barrier.
Yeah, I've just been catching off camera these two fighting for, yeah, definitely the last couple of minutes there. It's actually pulled, I think that's Robin Veerman, Patrick Hahn there in behind. So these two have been neck and neck on each other's rear bumper there at the moment. So this is really good news for Nico Weber. just all three of them just outside the top 10 at the moment. Oh, I think that might have been a little bit of a bump there from Nico Webber there, being a bit checked up, not knowing that that was going to happen there, but thankfully no damage.
Yeah, no damage at all. They got very close to River Siphon as they now head through Exmühle, a very, very high-speed corner that sets up your run down this long back straight. But Nico Webber is looking like the faster of the two at the moment. It's very, very close between the two, and Kevin Volk did underfuel slightly compared to Nico Webber, not by a dramatic amount, but I do wonder if he's just looking at his fuel gauge and thinking, oh, it's a little bit low, I might lift off here and there just to make sure I definitely do get to the finish line. And by doing that, he's making himself just a little bit more vulnerable to Nico Webber behind, who now has the draft but isn't really using it. Is kind of sitting to the outside of the draft, not using it to its full. So maybe he just wants to sit behind to make sure when it comes to the Dossinger-Ho straight on the final lap that he is the one in the draft, not the one getting drafted past.
Yeah, just seeing him come through that fast section now, 250 k's an hour. So these Ferraris absolutely flying through this part of the section. Look at the feedback as Kevin Volk pitches it sideways. It's very aggressive there with the steering of the Ferrari GT3 car. So not yeah, definitely without striking distance there at the moment. You see him come through one of the carousels here, but he is going to be very, very exposed there coming down that straight. So that's definitely where you want to be keeping your eye on these three near the end of this lap.
Absolutely, and we'll see how this all pans out for all of them. As it is the last lap, the drivers are working their way towards the end now, and there's no real challenge for your top three. They're all sort of around the area you would expect, but I'm sure for third place Cedric Nurburgring, he'll be feeling a little bit upset about this race. He had very strong pace, and it was just a little bit of an issue into the Armco barrier that stopped him challenging for the race win in today's race. Well, a little bit of clever fuel strategy, and he has found himself onto the podium, but still some 6 seconds away from your second place runner in Elias Seppänen, who's had a very quiet race himself in the BS competition, BMW M4 GT3, as we go back to this battle of many, many, many cars, including Kevin Volk, the drivers behind including Nico Webber and Patrick Hahn as well, as they now make their way towards Flansgarden, the very scary part of the circuit. And you'll actually see here the cars will actually lift off the ground ever so slightly as they dive their way into this next section of corners. It's a very scary part of the circuit, and you've got to make sure that you get all of your racing lines nice and correct, or else you are in for a big, big accident. But what I'm going to do is turn our attention to Team Redline's Mark Alkman. He's had a very convincingly dominant race. He led from the start. He never really looked challenged, apart from him taking a much longer pit stop than anybody else. But that longer pit stop proved to be a smart decision as the race went on a lap longer than anybody else expected. It's car number 6, but in round number 2, it will be position number 1 for Team Redline's Mark Alkman in a brilliant display here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. A great drive, and he sees the checkered flag first ahead of BS Competition's Elias Seppänen, who will come home in a lonely position number 2 with a little bit of damage to his BMW, but none of it matters. And Cedric Nurburgring in the Team RSO Ferrari will round out the podium, and a great drive by all of them, and hopefully they enjoy the champagne. Right now, there's no champagne, just a bucket of sweat for Kevin Volk, who is being haunted right now by Nico Webber, who's getting closer and closer. And when you go side by side through Tiergarten, there is always an enormous accident. So hopefully they don't go side by side, and I think Kevin Volk has the overlap sorted, and Nico Webber will slide on through. So Kevin will be upset to lose that position on the last lap, but it's a bit of a shame for those guys, because I would have loved to have seen what would have happened if they did decide to go side by side through the Tiergarten section of track. As Jack Wittes is out of fuel, I believe. Nick Coulson behind as well is also just going a little bit sluggish on the power. He's not going super fast. He's doing a lot of lift and coast. Who's going to get here first? Because we're on board with Wittes, and we're going to see who gets there, and I think maybe Wittes will get across the line first. Nick Coulson was coughing and spluttering, but he will get there anyway. Sergi Hooray looks like he's under no pressure unless he starts coughing, but I think he might be okay with Will Kwabi in position behind as well in 18th. So in the end, a very dramatic race, and a lot of drivers are confused about how he went into a 6th lap. Well, that was all because of Andreas Fink going to a 4th lap on his tank of fuel, and what that did is triggered iRacing to mean that the 5th lap was not the final, as we will get our race results up on screen in just a moment's time, as the drivers still crossing the finish line includes Mitch McLeod, who is still with a very damaged Lamborghini Huracan, but he was no match today for Mark Elkman. At the end of 6 laps, he would win in a dominant display ahead of Elias Sepinen and Cedric Nebeljic, who were your top 3. Niels Carstensen would make it 2 Team RSO cars in the top 4, and Andreas Fink, who of course set off that 6th lap race, will finish in the top 5 as well. Florian Bowden would finish a disappointing 6th after what could have been Bruno Spengler in 7th ahead of David Bosca, Quinton Violette, and Nico Weber, your top 10.
Just outside the top 10, Kevin Vogt with that big battle that we saw for the line there. Patrick Hahn there, Marcus Zug, Robin Veerman there in 14th, Jack Wittes, first of the Lamborghinis coming through there, Nick Coulson, Sergio Jerez, Guli Kawabe, Johan Yun, and Mitch McLeod rounding out the top 20.
And then for the rest of our drivers, it did include all DNFs, unfortunately. Jero Vai in 21st, ahead of Ernesto Romero, Matthew Barron, Wan Yin Lee, Joshua Thomas, E2 Van Kangas, and Lucas DeBelda and Brad Newman, your 28 cars that took on 40 minutes of racing, but ended up with 48 instead in a very dramatic round 2 of the Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series. We saw a dramatic finish in round number 1. We didn't quite get a dramatic finish as such, but we've got a very dramatic race strategy, Nick.
Yeah, and such a well, I won't call it an accident, but kind of a freak series of events which led to that extra lap and caught out so many. So you can see sometimes I always say the safe option is not always the best option, but I think the safe option was the safe option this time around. So, yeah, great work and just such a dominant display there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a great drive from Mark Elkman to take the victory. And we're going to wrap that up there. But, of course, it was a dramatic race. It will be a dramatic race, I'm sure, again next week as we head to Donington Park Grand Prix Circuit. It's going to be an interesting round there. And I'm interested to see what kind of fuel strategies happen there, what kind of overtakes happen as well. Donington, typically a hard circuit to pass, but you can expect plenty of dive bombs into the Melbourne hairpin. It's going to be an interesting race, and on behalf of Mr. Nick Skariev and, of course, JK Kennedy on the cameras as well, thank you all so much for watching, and we shall see you next time for round number 3 of the Virtual Racing School GT Sprint Series in 2021. Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top. Oh, my God. Oh, big crash. Oh, my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?